So if you came across these questions on your exam, they would be on the non-calculator part. So anytime you have something on the non-calculator part, it means either A, you could do it using your unit circle, or B, it's something like cos theta equals 5, which is not possible. So those are two things that happen when it's on a non-calculator part. What we're going to find is we're going to solve these questions from 0 to 360 degrees or 0 to 2 pi as a starting point. Almost all the questions, that's a really good place to start. And once you've solved it between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi, then you're going to go back and look, is that what they asked for? And in this case, this one's asking for negative 360 to 0. So then you're going to make some adjustments. And it's also asking for the general solution, which when we wrote out our steps for the general solution in 7.1, what were our steps? Step 1, find all of our answers between 0 and 360 anyways, or 0 and 2 pi. Step 2, add 2k pi. And in this case, since we're in degrees, we're going to add 360 times k to write all the coterminal angles. So let's get started on this one. First of all, we've got a bunch of like terms here. Can you see that you could subtract 5 on both sides and subtract 2 sine x on both sides? And you get 2 equals 2 sine x. And then if you want to get sine by itself, you could divide both sides by 2, and you get sine x equal to 1. Is that ever on your pie plate? Yes, when? Just at 90. Yeah. So you see, naturally, you solve between 0 and 360 degrees. So when I said at the beginning, let's solve first between 0 and 360, because it's just what you do naturally. Then, once you've figured out your answer, now you're going to go back and look, well, they want me to solve from negative 360 to 0. So I'm thinking of my unit circle. I thought 90 degrees, which is right here, but I figured out this positive angle. Now I want to figure out what would that negative be. What would that be as a negative angle? Negative 270 degrees, and maybe for showing your work, put an X through that one because that was just part of figuring it out as you went. So now we've solved for the answer between negative 360 and 0. How do we write a general solution? Well, we find our answers between 0 and 360, which was only 90 degrees. There's only the one answer. And then add 360 times k. So that would be the general solution. You could, so this 90 that we wrote here, you could use the answer you found in the first time around. Or if you wanted to write negative 270 plus 360k, it'll be exactly the same answer. Because 90 and negative 270 are already coterminal. And any one of those plus 360 times k would be exactly the same thing. So they would both be right. So sometimes you might find in the answer key, what you've chosen as your values might be different than what they chose. But as long as your angles are coterminal, then it will work out. Now for part B, use algebra to determine the general solution. So we want the general solution. And then it says write the answers between negative 2 pi and 0. So the fact that it says between negative 2 pi and 0, now we're thinking in radians. So we have cos 3x equals 1. Is that on our unit circle? It's negative 1. Well, is that on our unit circle? Yes. When is cos equal to negative 1? It's at pi. Okay? The other thing to remember is if we're doing a general solution, we're first going to try to solve between 0 and 2 pi. But what kind of question is this with a 3x? Do you remember the name? Multi-revolution. That was the name that we gave to this kind of question. What do we do with a multi-revolution? That means that if x is between 0 and 2 pi, 3x's would be between 0 and 6 pi, 3 times around. So you're right in saying that it's equal to -1 at pi. So our angle, and this is our angle here, our angle has to equal pi for that to work. But that's only the first time around the circle. What would this angle, there's pi first time around, what would that be the second time around? 3 pi. And the third time around? 5 pi. So those are our answers 3 times around, yeah. The domain, we're going to figure that out later, okay? Because it does say in the domain, yes, it says between -2 pi and 0. It also says find the general solution. So we're going to do our general solution first, and then we're going to find from -2 pi to 0. But either way, we're going to find it first between 0 and 2 pi. And we haven't done that yet, because we found out that 3x was equal to pi, 3 pi, and 5 pi over 3. If we want to find out what x is, we're going to have to divide each of these by 3. So there we have our answers between 0 and 2 pi. The question said find the general solution. Well, how do you do the general solution? You take each of your answers and add 2k pi. That would be our general solution. Was it x or theta? If we wanted to find the solution in this domain from -2 pi to 0, well, we can think about our answers. We found out that one of the answers was pi over 3, one of the answers was pi, and one of the answers was 5 pi over 3. Yes?
It's less than 0. X is less than
Oh, it didn't include 0? I can take out my fancy littlest eraser. Nice. Perfect. So those are my 3 answers. We listed them from 0 to 2 pi. We had pi over 3, we had pi, and we had 5 pi over 3. If we wanted to find out from -2 pi to 0, that's like going from 0, there'd be this answer, and this answer. Okay? 2 ways you can think about this. If you think about the diagram, some of you will be able to just write them out. Can you see that the first one would be -pi over 3, the second one would be -pi, and the last big one would be -5 pi over 3. So if you draw it out, you might just be able to see it. Why? How do I know that this one in quadrant 1 is -5 pi over 3? Well, I know my reference angle, it's part of the pi over 3 family. And in the negative direction, it's like going to a 4th quadrant in the negative direction. So I think about 5 pi over 3 being my angle in quadrant 4. So then this would be -5 pi over 3. Another thing you could do is you could take your 3 answers that you had to begin with, and you could subtract 2 pi off each of them, because that would give you a coterminal angle back 2 pi. Well, if you're subtracting 2 pi, you're going to have to get a common denominator, right? So 2 pi is the same as 6 pi over 3. So what's 5 pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3? Negative pi over 3. What's pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3? Negative 5 pi over 3. And that's another way that you could get those same answers. So we got our general solution, and we got our solution between negative 2 pi and 0. Perfect. Okay, we are going to take some time to practice some of these. 4, 8, and 9.